Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Was already this sick. Why was he still messing around? However, he still insisted on teasing her. He leaned his head against the back of the couch lazily, causing his handsome face to be fully exposed to the light as he studied her face in close proximity with an intense gaze. Ruka was focused on her task, so she ignored his presumptuous eyes. She just wanted to quickly lower his body temperature. However, she wasn't aware that her current distance and her hands that were wiping were not helping to lower his heat anymore, but making it worse instead. He reached out to brush her bangs behind her ears. Then, his gaze fell on her pink lips. His tongue stuck to his cheek, as if he were a dangerous feline that was ready to hunt. As soon as she finished wiping and was about to get out and pour a little more alcohol onto the towel, both of her wrists were caught in his grip, and she was flipped over soon after. With his scorching body, he pressed her onto the couch and locked her lean arms above her head. Soon, a sense of danger struck her as his handsome face approached her. Before she could finish calling his name, he immediately kissed her, and his hot lips seemed to be more enthusiastic than usual. Ruka instinctively closed her eyes and tried her best to adjust her breathing in an attempt to receive his kiss. She had no idea how to kiss, so she lost her breath during the first 2 times. However, she seemed to be more proficient this time, for some unknown reason. As they kissed, she slowly became groggy, as if she was infected with his symptoms. Her breathing gradually became rapid, her face flushed, and her lips were dominated by his passion. Finally, she realized the danger she was in. She suddenly stiffened and blushed as she gritted her teeth and pushed him. No. Run, since their intimate actions made her terrified and anxious, Ruka voiced her protest. Run was also panting badly, and his body, which was already burning, felt even hotter now. He propped himself up with his hands, but did not let her escape immediately. As Ruka pushed his chest with her small hands and felt his heat and his strong heartbeat, her palms turned sweaty. Are you all right? Ruka was worried that if Rin kept this up, he might faint from the heat. He was already burning up. If he did something like this, wouldn't he burn up even more? What do you think? His voice was so hoarse that it made her tremble. Ruka looked into his eyes, where she saw a strong restraint holding back the danger that was about to overflow from him. She subconsciously twisted her body in an attempt to get out, but he only warned her, "Don't move around." Ruka pursed her dry lips. No matter how much she looked, she couldn't tell what he wanted. She only felt like his gaze was dark and hard to read. Just then, he lowered his head even more, causing her to turn her head away in shock, fearing that he would kiss her again. However, Rin only placed his mouth against her earlobe with a soft laugh and said in a low voice, "Ruka, let's date each other." Ruka took a deep breath, thoroughly stunned, and her mind turned completely blank. He was asking her to date him? No, we can't. She couldn't think at all, and could only reject him immediately. Why not? Because you're too significant of a person, and it stresses me out. Besides, if I date you, you can't hold my hand like everyone else, and you can't shop or go to the movies with me, or eat with me. Besides, you don't have any time to spare for me. Ruka's voice became quieter and quieter as she thought that her excuses sounded too weak. Ron suddenly felt a laugh bubble in his chest, and his eyes were full of exasperation as he stared at her. Was she actually rejecting him because of these reasons? It really broke his heart. Who said I can't go shopping and watch movies with you? He curled his lips and smiled. I can do anything you want. His words were doting yet bossy. Ruka was still dizzy from the kiss when she felt the danger emanating from his body. He had been only wearing a thin robe in the first place, so all of his reactions were extremely obvious. She bit her lips and asked, "Can you let me get up so we can talk?" Rin suddenly pressed his body onto hers. I like talking like this. You're acting like a hooligan, Ruka said with a red face. In the end, Rin still soft-heartedly let her go. He looked extremely sexy as he panted slightly with his robe wide open. I need time to think about dating you. Ruka calmed down a little and didn't immediately refuse him, but she couldn't blindly agree as there were many factors that she had to consider. Victoria's words were still ringing in her ears. You don't want to ruin everything he has, do you? Of course Ruka didn't want to, and she even hoped that he would remain firmly in his position and achieve greater success, because he had done a good job for the country and the people. Okay. Give me an answer on Christmas. Run gave her a deadline. He didn't want to wait too long as he had already waited enough. Let me wipe your body again. Ruka was still worried about his condition even though he bullied her. I'll do it myself. If you do it, I really can't control myself. Ren's intense gaze landed on her. Ruka understood what he meant, and her pretty face flushed even more. He barely said anything, but he had also made everything clear. You can always call me if you need anything. Ruka said as she got up before she instructed, make sure to drink more water. After Ruka left, she hurried downstairs to drink a large glass of water herself, then sat on the couch in the hall with a glass in her hands. She was still feeling a little confused, recalling what he said just now. Ruka, let's date each other. When she returned to her room, she couldn't fall asleep anymore. Half an hour later, she went back to his room as she was worried about him. She gently turned the doorknob and looked inside, only to see Ren's sleeping body on the big gray bed. She treaded lightly to his bed and reached out to measure the temperature of his forehead. Fortunately, the heat had subsided a little, and he was not burning up as much as before. Then, she carefully tucked him in before leaving. At dawn, Ruka was roused awake by her alarm clock. She glanced at the time and realized groggily she still had to get up and go to work. When she went downstairs, she saw that Elijah was already waiting for her by the door. She greeted him, "Good morning, Elijah. Miss Singed, a bodyguard will send you to work later. I'll stay behind to take care of Mr. Hassan." "All right. Take good care of him." With someone taking care of Ron, Ruka could go to work with peace of mind. As soon as Ruka arrived at the translation department's office, Victoria's assistant instantly came over from the entrance. "Ruka, Miss Parfay's looking for you in her office." Ruka knew what was going on as well, and she took a deep breath before walking to Victoria's office. In the office, Victoria's face had been drawn all morning. Her complexion was a little pale, and the look she was giving Ruka contained a hint of exasperation. "Didn't you promise to take me home last night? Why did it turn out to be Elijah? Where did you and Rin go?" Although Victoria had been drunk, she remembered everything. Ruka apologized. "I'm sorry, Miss Parfay. You were so drunk last night that you fell down while I was helping you, so I could only ask Elijah to take you back." Victoria was looking annoyed at this moment. She clearly remembered that it was Rin she hugged last night. However, she was holding on to Elijah during the whole ride. Even if Elijah was considered an excellent young man, she only had Rin in her heart. "Then where did you go with Rin after you left? Did you go to his house?" Victoria couldn't help but ask. Ruka frowned. "That is my personal life. I don't think I need to answer that question." From Ruka's reaction, Victoria could guess that they had gone to Rin's house together. She looked at Ruka's pure face and sneered, "You said you weren't in a relationship, but I don't believe it anymore. How could there be nothing between you and him when you spent the night together?" Ruka's face suddenly heated up, but her expression still remained calm. She raised her head and said, "Miss Parfay, you're insulting me. My relationship with Mr. Hassan and whether or not we have anything between us shouldn't bother you, right?" Victoria's sharp eyes narrowed. "Are you ignoring what I said last night? If you dare to ruin Run, I won't forgive you. Ruka, you can like anyone as long as it isn't him. Don't you realize he's your elder? Ruka closed her eyes and pursed her lips. She didn't need Victoria to remind her anymore about their relationship. Thank you for your reminder. I'll handle my own matters myself. Saying that, Ruka turned around and left. Victoria gritted her teeth in anger. Ruka had been obediently listening to her last night, but why did she suddenly dare to refute her today? Was Rin helping her? Ruka returned to the office, feeling confused all of a sudden. Victoria's words sounded in her ears like a warning dash. Are you trying to ruin him? If they really got together, would she ruin him? As Ruka was immersed in her own thoughts, Michelle and Inara chatted about a TV series they watched on the previous night in front of her. Is the editor insane? Putting the uncle and his niece in a relationship? Doesn't the editor know how immoral that is? It's just a TV show. Besides, they're not related by blood. Why were you taking it so seriously? Michelle replied. That doesn't work either. I think the uncle and his colleague are a better pair. I just don't agree with him dating his niece. Most of the comments were objecting to this too. Isn't this wrong? Inara insisted. Resolutely. Ruka's breathing caught in her throat. Inara's words seemed to be reminding her of something. You're right about that. If this was in reality, everyone would definitely not be able to accept it. Either way, I wouldn't be able to. Michelle agreed. If anyone dares to do this in reality, I'll teach them a lesson, Inara said with a hostile expression. Ruka's heart jolted sharply, and she looked at Inara again. As Inara happened to be opposite her, she couldn't help but frown and asked, Ruka, why are you being so nervous? I'm not. Ruka shook her head. Ruka, you're so amazing for chasing me away. We'll be best friends from now on, so let's get along. Michelle suddenly acted friendly to her. That's because she has a powerful background, all right? Inara scoffed. Can you tell us who is behind you? Michelle asked boldly. Ruka raised her head and said, I don't have anyone supporting me, so stop guessing. We're all just rookies. I don't know how hard we have to work to get to Miss Parfait's position one day. Michelle ranted. Ruka didn't reply. Just then, her phone rang. When she took a look, she hurriedly reached out to pick up the call. Hello? Mr. Hassan is going to the translation department soon. If you see him, please keep your distance, Miss Singed. Elijah's voice sounded from the other end. Ruka's heart throbbed suddenly. Isn't he having a fever? It's about work, so he has to come over personally. All right, I understand. Please take good care of him. Ruka nodded. At the office, Victoria received a call as well, and a flash of happiness appeared in her originally moody eyes as she said in a low voice, Really? He wants to take the guests on a tour around the translation department? Victoria, you have to calm down. Don't overreact, Victoria's superior instructed on the other end. Clearly, he knew about Victoria's admiration for Run. All right, I understand. I'll do my job well. When Victoria hung up and put down the phone, she opened her drawer and took out an exquisite cosmetic bag inside. When she saw her sleep-deprived eyes in the mirror, she hurriedly reapplied her makeup. She had to give Ren a good impression. However, she suddenly recalled something, and her eyes turned downcast. Even if Ren was really just coming to work, and even if he looked forward to seeing Ruka more, she would greet him in her best condition. In the office, Ruka was a little absent-minded. As they were still interns, everyone was lazing around. Michelle was reading novels, Inara was texting someone, and only Caspian was putting an effort to read something by the side. Suddenly, her phone beeped with a notification from a text message. When she hurriedly took a look, she saw that it was sent by an unknown number. "Hey, Ruka. Are you free tonight? I'd like to treat you to a meal." Just when Ruka was wondering who the sender was, she looked up and saw Caspian quietly beckoning at her. She couldn't help but chuckle. "So, it's him." She gave it some thought. As she had to take care of Ren that night, she wasn't free. She replied to Caspian, "Let's leave it for next time. I happen to have something to do tonight." Caspian pursed his lips, obviously still unwilling to give up, and replied, "Your birthday is tomorrow, so I'm thinking of treating you to dinner in advance." Ruka was taken aback. She had just remembered that her birthday was tomorrow. She had actually completely forgotten about it. "Thank you, but I really have an urgent matter to attend to tonight. After my birthday, I'll treat you to dinner." Ruka was grateful that he remembered her birthday. After Caspian read the message, a hint of disappointment flashed past his eyes, but he soon smiled slightly at her. Ruka's cell phone rang again. When she glanced at it, her heart pounded. It was a message from Ren that said, "I'm going to show some guests around the translation department. I'll be reaching soon." Ruka's breathing quickened slightly as her face flushed red, and even her hands turned a little sweaty from nervousness. She was a little flustered to meet him in a place with so many people, fearing that the others might notice something. Ruka didn't want to go out to see him at first, but when she recalled that he was working while being ill that day, she felt a little worried about him, so she decided to get up after a brief moment of hesitation. However, just then, Theodore rushed over from the outside and announced loudly, "Breaking news! Mr. Hassan will be showing some guests around the translation department soon, and he'll be here soon." A scream could be heard as Inara stood up exaggeratedly, holding her head. "I forgot to wash my hair last night, and I forgot to put on makeup today. I forgot to bring my makeup bag too. Michelle, hurry up and lend me yours. I have to touch up my makeup. Hold on." Saying that, Michelle hurriedly took her makeup bag out and carefully inspected her appearance in the mirror. Just then, Inara turned to look at Ruka. "Ruka, did you bring any makeup? Lend me some." Ruka shook her head. "I didn't." She had never brought these things to work, and except for some lip balm, she was completely barefaced that day. She hadn't gotten enough sleep at all, so she had only gotten up after her alarm had rang 3 times this morning and left in a hurry after washing her face. In the end, Inara borrowed Michelle's makeup bag and set it on the table before she began to apply her makeup seriously. Theodore couldn't help but comment disdainfully, "Girls really are troublesome. Besides, is there any difference even if you don't put on makeup? Mr. Hassan won't spare you another glance. What do you know about this? Even if he doesn't, we have to look our prettiest when he walks past us," Michelle rebuked. "I'd be happy for an entire year if he looked at me even once," Inara added while she was hurriedly drawing her eyeliner. Ruka clasped her hand over her mouth, holding her laughter back. "You have to learn from Ruka. Look, isn't she still pretty without any makeup?" Ruka had been covering her mouth to stifle her laughter in the first place, so the others instantly caught her smiling expression when they suddenly glared at her. Michelle looked at her. "You think this is funny?" Ruka pursed her lips and shook her head. "I'm not laughing at you guys. Ruka looks really pretty even without makeup." Caspian took advantage of the opportunity and praised her. "I think Ruka has the highest possibility of catching Mr. Hassan's attention among the 3 of you. After all, she's a natural beauty." Theodore provoked the other 2 women on purpose. Ruka jolted in surprise before she hurriedly waved her hands. "All right, stop talking about me." Finally, Inara was satisfied with her makeup. After she and Michelle inspected each other, she got up and asked, "Does anyone want to go and see Mr. Hassan?" "Let's go together." "I'm not going." "You guys can go ahead." Ruka raised her head and replied. All right, I'm not going as well. I'll stay back with you, Caspian said. After the others eagerly left, Caspian furtively sized Ruka up, who was holding her chin in a daze. The sunshine trickled in from the window and shone on her face, causing her fair and delicate features to stand out even more. Her beauty truly was pure, natural, and immaculate. Caspian couldn't help but stare at her, his heart pounding hard as he secretly thought to himself that he must get his hands on Ruka. Although Ruka said she didn't want to go out to see Ren on the surface, she felt differently on the inside. She wanted to go. She wanted to rush into the crowd to see him now, to look at his handsome appearance, and to watch him receiving his guests calmly and gracefully. Just then, around 8 cars arrived in the parking lot, and Ren alighted from one of the cars. He walked up to 2 older foreign guests, communicating fluently with them while showing them the way in. The group walked toward the main hall of the translation department, where Victoria was already beautifully dressed and was waiting with the other 2 heads of the department. When she looked at the man walking by, her chest throbbed violently. Whenever this man appeared, he would always make her go insane from admiration. People always said that one shouldn't meet someone who was too outstanding, as it would hurt one for a lifetime if one couldn't be with them. Victoria was in this exact situation. The person she liked was just too outstanding. When Ren walked over, the 2 superiors next to Victoria immediately stepped forward and shook hands with him respectfully, then shook hands with the guests one by one before entering the main hall. In a garden nearby, Inara and Michelle could only look at him from afar, but they were already holding each other in excitement. He's too handsome. It's like he descended from heaven. Inara gasped with a look of admiration. I really hope that I'd be lucky enough for him to look at me. Michelle clasped her hands together. Please give me some luck. Inara discreetly sized Michelle up and thought to herself that she would be the one scoring a glance from Ren, given she was the better-looking one. As Victoria followed behind the crowd, she stared at the man who was exuding attractiveness from every pore at every second, entirely spellbound. Back in the office, Ruka couldn't bear a second longer here, so she excused herself to go to the restroom. However, the direction she was heading was toward the main hall. Just as she entered the central garden, she came to a complete stop, as she saw Ren and his group coming in from the other side of the garden. With her heart raised, Ruka quickly hid behind a pillar. Then, with a behavior that could only be known as a fangirl, she poked her head out from the pillar and watched the tall man communicating with the guests from a dozen meters away. The man at work gave off a distinct quality, a riveting one. Even when standing next to the taller foreign guests, the man still didn't lose out, as he exuded a captivating presence in the midst of his cheerful conversation. If the people around him were like the stars in the night sky, then he was the moon, the center of attention. It was at this moment that Ruka had a thought. Why did the man feel distant even though he was just mere meters away from her? But she knew very well why. The distance she felt came from the difference in their identities, in their social status in society. With how dignified and distinguished the man was, he was in a far higher position than that of a common man. On the other hand, she was just part of the ordinary mass of society with nothing to her that was worth mentioning. Unwittingly, even at such a time, she remembered the incident last night and how he asked her to go out with him. She couldn't help but doubt just why such an excellent man would fall for someone like her. Ruka felt she wasn't someone outstanding, as she was just a very ordinary person. Even now, as she stood behind the pillar, having no notable achievements under her belt, her future remained blank. With all these facts, she wondered just why that man liked her. No matter how much she racked her brains over this, she couldn't find an answer.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.